Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. Over the last couple days, we've seen a pullback in the market as many people are starting to liquidate their positions, getting too over leveraged for what they expect to be coming. Today, I wanted to talk about this sell-off. Is this something that we need to be worried about and be looking and planning ahead for a potential deeper correction? Or is this just another fake out before we ultimately see the market break out once more and finally confirm this new all-time high that I've been talking about? We are at the last moment of time where in Q4, historically speaking, this is the moment where the altcoins run the hardest. If we were to see a deeper correction, how is that going to be putting us in the long term of our cycle? Are we about to be missing out, or are we about to make a lot of money? Today, I'm going to break it down and make sure that you guys know exactly how to play this market. So stay all the way to the end because there's a lot of charts that you're not going to want to miss out on. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you find any value in this video, please do me a favor. Hit that like, comment, and subscribe button. Without further ado, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Starting off today's video, the best thing that we can do is go to Bitcoin and then just look at all of our major indexes that are going to help to simplify things. What I always tell you guys is if maybe you're a little confused around what is taking place around the actual dollar charts, sometimes we want to look at the indexes because the indexes are going to show kind of an average of volume. And honestly, volume seems to be a little bit more consistent when we're trying to analyze price levels. Now, right off the bat, guys, we have seen a pullback coming into the market over the last couple days. We're seeing a little bit of a sell-off taking place shortly after our FOMC meeting where they decided to cut rates. Now, most people were anticipating that after the rate cut, we would continue to go up. We had kind of this choppy price action before we had this big sell-off on the shorter time frames. Now, whenever we have a big sell-off in the shorter time frames, I like to just zoom out because the big thing that we need to be aware of here is the fact that our price structure really hasn't changed on the higher time frames. And even though the shorter time frames can get a little choppy and volatile, we might not know how to actually go about planning our trades. This is the time where we want to zoom out and just look at things from face value. Right off the bat, every single time that Bitcoin makes a breakout, it does one of these higher highs. We usually spend a little bit of time consolidating back on top of that level as new support. And this has basically been the case every single portion of our cycle up. We can come all the way to the very bottom and we can see that when we have an identified resistance level, the first thing that Bitcoin does is break above and then usually bounces off of that level a couple times. You know, that's what happened when we began this bull market in the early portion of 2023. Consolidated on top of support of this prior resistance for a few months before we broke out, ran to the all-time highs, consolidated below these all-time highs and ranged underneath for quite some time. But keep in mind, we were always holding support, right? Always making higher highs and higher lows, and that's been the staple every single portion up to this point. Now, if we look at our most recent high, this took us from 68 all the way to 109 approximately. And then we ended up rejecting underneath 109 for another month before we finally broke out. So as it stands, we're still holding that same support. And even though we are still seeing kind of a pullback in the shorter time frames, that pullback is still holding above this same level. So in my opinion, as long as we're going to continue to hold support, make higher highs and higher lows and confirm those retests, I don't really see anything to be too bearish about in the market. In fact, when I take the time to zoom out on Bitcoin, I honestly believe that we're at that moment where the market's really going to start heating up and we're going to see Bitcoin rocket upwards of 160K before we see any type of small pullback. But realistically, I'm anticipating something more on the lines of this, where we're going to see this big run. We'll see a little pullback, but then that's what's really going to be taking us into the mania phase of Q4. I still don't think anything has changed on the shorter time frames. You know, yes, we're going to look at a little bit of chop that's going to take place, but we've already been talking about that. I've told you guys and made it very clear. FOMC is a time where there is a lot of volatility, and if we take the time to actually just zoom out at what our other charts are showing us, Ethereum is in a prime example of this, where I'm not worried whatsoever about this pullback. We're looking at all of our indexes. Not only is Bitcoin holding higher highs and higher lows, nothing has changed in its market structure, but if we're looking at Ethereum, it's still holding that same breakout level that I talked about, right? You know, this is our most important area of demand on the entire Ethereum chart, and we finally got a breakout above that level, as indicated here, and all we're doing now is pulling back down to that same level as support. Even if it comes back down and retests the bottom of this box, it doesn't change anything. This entire move is just a short-term correction before ETH is finally start to get liftoff into new all-time highs. Guys, this is one of the final dips that we're really going to have as the market structure is still below the prior all-time highs of the last cycle. The fact that we're even getting this dip at all is a godsend because this is just giving us more time to prime our positions, dollar cost average into our old positions that we've already been accumulating, or even finding new positions that we like moving forward into Q4. All of these are the opportune time to be getting in, considering anytime Ethereum has rejected over the course of like a whole year and a half under the same resistance, the second that you get that breakout and retest, that's your opportunity to buy that dip. You know, we did make a lower low from the primary dip that we saw, but it's not really changing anything. As long as the price action is holding above this green blocks, going all the way back to the ending of our last bull market, the resistance that we saw there when ETH was about 4K, you know, I think that this is just an opportunity to be getting in, even if we dip a little bit lower into this green box. Don't get shaken out of your positions. I tried to make that very clear over the last few updates. It's the thing that almost everybody does right before the big bulk of the upside potential sets into our bull run. That's usually where most people are going to capitulate, exit, and then they're going to miss out on what's to be coming. Because guys, there's a lot of charts that we can look at. If we come over here and look at the total market cap of crypto, each one of these green boxes is where they cut rates. And every one of these was anywhere from a 25 BPS to a 50 BPS. I think every one of these have been a 25 as we've began this cycle. And you can actually come over here and take a look at where we've always either raised rates or we've cut rates. And we can see that November 2nd of 2022, at the top of our last cycle, that was really the nail in the coffin, was when they started to actually increase interest rates. And they increased interest rates from November of 2022 all the way until July 26th of 2023. And then it was from September 18th, 2024 that they started to actually cut those rates. And we can see that indicated here. If we come over and look at September 18th in our chart, that's going to be taking us right over to the exact bottom over in this last correction. Remember when Bitcoin topped at the all-time highs, we kind of corrected back down below those all-time highs. This is the total market cap, so it looks a little bit different. But it was at the very bottom of that move that we ended up seeing the interest rates get cut. And that was really what led us into that breakout of the prior all-time highs and kind of giving us that retest back onto support. Now, it was at the very top of this move. We had like 3 different rate cuts going up. We had the one at the very bottom. We had another one over here that took place right as we started to break out of those range highs. And then we had another one right at the very top. So with the rate cuts, we can see that the second they really started to cut these rates was when we started to finally get outside of these all-time highs. And I think that the market was pricing in us to start going into new all-time highs. We had one final sell-off that took place. We came back down onto support of this prior range. But now we have our secondary rate cut that's taking place right as the market is moments away from starting to break out of this range high. So what we're noticing here is we're finally to the point of these rate cuts. But what I want you guys to be aware of is when we're looking at the price structure, you know, yeah, we're seeing this pullback in here, but we're still just holding on top of the prior range high as new support. We broke out, retested this 2 different times. And in my opinion, all this sell-off is just another opportunity to get back in. We know that with this being our most recent rate cut, the last time we had a rate cut that was at the bottom of this correction or kind of after a corrective phase was right over in here. And we ended up seeing 3 of them. We saw this one at the bottom. We saw one right when we started breaking out right over in here. I'm on a weekly, so I can't draw the exact candle. And then we saw one right over here at the top. So we saw 3 rate cuts that took place, and that was what kind of led us into that breakout of the prior all-time high. Now that we're getting our next round of rate cuts and they're pricing in, you know, another 1 or 2 more rate cuts to come over the next couple months, chances are we're going to see kind of this same pattern play out once again. And I'm not going to be surprised if this second time it plays out, we see the market really start to pick up in a big way. You know, we could see something similar where we see these 3 rate cuts as the market's starting to go really parabolic, kind of following a similar method that what we just saw over the last year or 2 when they finally started to cut these rates. So when we're looking at the price action today, don't be surprised if this is kind of what is going to be coming next inside of our cycle. And as long as we're holding support above these range highs, I have no reason to be bearish. I have no reason to be concerned about the current price action. This is really just an opportunity for me to buy some of these altcoins, considering Bitcoin pulled back a few percent, altcoins pulled back, you know, some of them 10 to 20%. So there's a lot of discounts out there, and that's really the way that I'm viewing all of this. I look at it as nothing more. You know, it doesn't matter which chart we're looking at. We can come over here and take a look at the total altcoin market cap chart. And we know that we've been flirting with this all-time high breakout. We still have been unable to get that true breakout quite yet. But guys, we're still just inside of this same range. Nothing is changing. We're right at those all-time highs. We've retested those all-time highs basically in December of 2024. And with us now kind of just being right inside this same range, I honestly look at this as nothing more than us just consolidating before that breakout comes in. And I'm not going to be surprised if on the next move we see that green candle finally take us outside of that resistance. We'll probably see another pullback back down onto that support. before we get continuation. But we're going to continue to see this kind of choppy price action until the market gets a confirmed breakout. And even after we get that confirmed breakout, chances are you're still going to see a pullback to really cement that new support before it goes into a new all-time high. This is the way that the markets work, guys. We can't be worried about these 10% chops, these swings up and down that are happening right at a major shifting point of our cycle. We know that this is a big cup and handle formation. Go back and watch my last video. This is the most bullish continuation pattern that even exists. And with us now moments away from breaking out of the range high, I'm telling you guys right now that once the breakout happens, it's going to happen so quick that anybody that was on the sidelines is just going to miss out. They're going to get priced out in a relatively short period of time. This is the final end of our cycle where Q4 has historically produced the biggest rallies. So we can't get chopped up over every single 5 and 10% move. You know, that's just to be expected before we've got a confirmed breakout. Once the confirmed breakout happens and we're truly outside of this resistance, then in my opinion, you can ignore the chop and then just focus on what's ahead. But for right now, you're just going to see a lot of this up and down price action until we get that confirmed move. But guys, looking at the higher time frames, there's nothing in this chart that's telling me that we're bearish. We're just having another opportunity to get into that low discount. Coming over here and taking a look at the total market cap 3, this one is still really close to breaking out. It's a little bit ahead of the other one I just showed you with the total market cap, but it's still, you know, right there in the same move, right? We still have rejected at this range high resistance being the all-time high. We've rejected off of this a couple different times, but in my opinion, this is just consolidation. I wouldn't say it's a confirmed rejection before we go lower. When I look at this, we're still right inside of that green box. All we're doing right here is kind of filling out the breakout, right? We made this attempted move to break out 2 wicks. We closed back below. Now we're just kind of bouncing on support of that same green box. This is going to be the prior range highs that we were at basically at the beginning of 2025 and at the ending of 2024. All of this is just consolidation. Don't even be surprised if it just kind of drags out here for another week before you ever get any sort of sustained breakout. But guys, I'm telling you, with this chart hugging so close to this resistance and with us already bouncing off of this green box, we're just holding the prior range that we were at. We rejected once, twice, 3, 4 different times underneath this green box. We got a breakout back above, and now the second that we finally retest that breakout, you know, people are starting to freak out. You know, yes, we're still below the prior all-time highs, but with us now clearing above, you know, our prior resistance that we were just at, all this is doing is going in the direction that we need to see it. It's making higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, and that's what you're going to expect to see. And don't be surprised that, you know, we see a lot of this choppy price action as we're kind of just beginning these breakouts. You're going to see a lot of this type of price action where when it goes up, it comes right back down to retest that level, consolidates, and it breaks out, comes right back down to retest that same level, breaks out, retests again, and it's just kind of barely seeming to go up, but it's just chopping back and forth. Every single one of these moves has followed the exact same turn of events. There's not a difference in the world. Every one of these is making higher highs and higher lows. So now that we're just sitting right at this all-time high resistance, pretty much doing the same things throughout this entire consolidation, people are now so freaked out and panicked, and they've started to move out of crypto into cash and just waiting for some type of correction that's most likely never going to happen. When I zoom out and see this, we've had like 2.5 years, 3 years worth of consolidation below these all-time highs. Now that we're just moments away from breaking out, you have so many people that are freaking out about it. But I'm telling you guys, this is the time where you're going to see volatility. We just had an FOMC meeting. Historically, when we look at these meetings and we can see where the rate cuts are, this has always propelled us into a really big type of a move shortly after. So with us now having this rate cut and we're just sitting right at these all-time highs, don't be worried about the shorter time frames and the chop and the volatility that's going to happen. I warned you guys about this over the last week. Now that we're starting to see a little volatility, you're seeing just how over-emotional people are and how over-leveraged they are. Everybody got too over-leveraged getting ready for that FOMC. And then after FOMC, when we had just a little bit of a pullback, you really saw how many people were betting on the idea that that was just going to be an instant breakout. And it doesn't usually work like that. Generally, you're going to have a big news event everybody looks forward to. That event happens, you see a little bit of a dip, then everybody writes it off as a bearish news event entirely, and then that's usually when the reversal actually happens. So guys, zooming out, there's nothing to be afraid of. All of our major charts are breaking out and holding these breakouts. Even Bitcoin, You know, it's still holding that same level that we always have, still making higher highs and higher lows. And really, when I look at Ethereum, this is what gives me a lot more confidence, because we broke out at this massive resistance that we had. And this is our resistance dating all the way back to our last bull market. So the fact that Ethereum is still just retesting this level gives me confidence to buy in. It gives me confidence to get new altcoins, considering some altcoins held up great. AVAX, BNB has broken out and made a new all-time high. So there's plenty of altcoins out there that are still showing why we're bullish and why we're buying into these dips and why we're not getting shaken out. So guys, this is the video I had for you. If you did find value, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. You don't want to miss out on any of these updates moving forward. If you guys do want to actually join my Discord server and see what I'm trading with different signals I'm going to be buying, selling, specifically when I'm going to be taking profits at the end of this cycle, links are in the description to go ahead and sign up on my website. Lifetime access once you're in, and I'm always going to be trading and investing in these markets. So whether it's crypto, stocks, commodities, anything, you guys are going to be able to follow along with that. So links are in the description if you guys want to tune in. And with that being said, I will catch you guys in the next one. As always, peace out.